Morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Lisa. I've been a project manager with ARCUS since 2015. I'm also the manager of the Sea Ice for Walrus Outlook, which some of you may be familiar with. I'll drop a link to that program later. And I've been working in the Bering Strait region for a little over 20 years now. I started in 2002 working for Fish and Wildlife Service on St. Lawrence Island. And so for me personally, I've spent most of my career working in the Bering Strait, and so this call is really important to me. ARCUS's interests in the Bering Strait are a bit more broad and really rooted in relationships with partners, members, and collaborators in the region. In addition to managing programs like the Sea Ice for Walrus Outlook that supports hunters in the Bering Strait, in collaboration with Kawerak and the Eskimo Walrus Commission, we also manage the Sea Ice Prediction Network and Sea Ice Outlook that predict the annual sea ice minimum. We manage the Arctic Indigenous Scholars Program that supports knowledge holders from throughout the Arctic, but we've had several scholars from the Bering Strait region to travel to Washington, D.C. to meet with Arctic policymakers. We have programs like Beringia Days that we've supported and various other efforts in the region. We have members and actually quite a few board members from the Bering Strait region, and we'll share more about our board members later. So ARCUS also works directly with the National Science Foundation, and the majority of our funding comes from the Office of Polar Programs. And through our research community networking activities like our listservs and social media, we have this unique perspective on the various research efforts that are happening in the Bering Strait region. And through our partners and members, we're also hearing about needs and opportunities for better communication, both among researchers, especially within the navigating the new Arctic program that we've been talking with recently, but also among researchers and communities. So this call is building on a conversation that we had earlier in the year at the NSF's Navigating the New Arctic annual meeting in Washington, D.C. back in March, where we had a special session, including all the PIs doing research within the Bering Strait region, all came together and had a conversation and made some recommendations for better coordination in the region. And that's where this follow-up conversation comes in, which is virtual and broadens the participation to those who weren't physically there at the meeting. So I will pass it back over to Britt to talk a little bit more about the focus of this meeting.
Yeah, so we just want to really acknowledge that there are many groups, like ARCUS, the Navigating the New Arctic Community Office, the Northern Latitudes Partnership, IARPC, UIC Science, Alaska Sea Grant, so many that are playing really important roles in Arctic research coordination and support. And we're, as we think about how ARCUS wants to kind of play within this wider institutional ecosystem, we're trying to be really intentional about what ARCUS can contribute to this ongoing effort. So as Lisa mentioned, this call was done very specifically to bring back some of the investigators who were part of that NNA session, but it's also an opportunity for us to help connect with some other NSF investigators who are not part of NNA, and to connect to the members and partner organizations that ARCUS works with. And so we didn't advertise this event very widely because we really wanted to start with developing a greater awareness among this community that's a little bit more specific. So we have those goals up on the slide here, and really what we're hoping to have as an outcome today is just an elevation of some of the work that is already going on, and some discussion around what we can all do to engage in the coordination and collaborative outreach efforts that may already be taking place. So, and I think we'll go ahead to our next slide. just wanted, because we're talking about engaging with the ARCUS community, just going to flash all these logos at you guys really quick, point out, there's some key organizations in there like AUS, WWF, UAF, UIC Science, Kawerak, Woods Hole, Oceanographic Institute, NOAA, all of these organizations and many, many more of them have work going on in the region. And just wanting, if you might be interested in engaging more with this group, this slide also comes with an open invitation to connect with me about what is going on with the consortium and how your organization might be able to get involved. Okay, you've heard way too much from us now, so let's go ahead and get going with some of these community introductions. And I think the first person that we have on our list today is Christina Poleacovschi. Did I pronounce your last name correctly, Christina?
Yes, indeed. Actually, you did a very good job. So yeah, thank you. Awesome. Should I just introduce myself, not start the presentation, Britt? Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Yep, I'm Christina Poleacovschi. I'm assistant professor at Iowa State University in civil engineering. I've been working in Northern Sound for the past 4 years, and it's really great to meet everybody and share more in regards to the project I work with.
And would you like to say anything about the work that you're doing?
Yes. Okay. Yes. My work, so my work primarily focuses on water insecurity, and energy insecurity, and kind of bridging some of the social side aspects with the engineering and trying to identify different interventions on how we can improve water challenges, water trust, energy, and indoor air quality in particularly in Unalakleet. That has been our main community we've been working with.
Okay. And I know that I said we were going to wait until the very end for questions. But I know, Christina, you need to jump off of the call.
Yes.
Like if anybody does have a question about the work that Christina's doing.
And also, Britt, I have a short presentation. I don't know if we can share that. Are we okay?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
Oh, yes. Perfect. Yep. Oh, awesome. Yeah. I just wasn't sure if we go through. Alrighty, let me share my screen. And I tried to make it relatively brief. Can everybody see my slides? Okay, perfect. Alrighty, so just let me make it an F5. Okay, so this is a project. So I'm a part of, and as you mentioned, Britt, a part of an NNA, but I will talk primarily about the EPA project. They are very similar, but also have some differences. So this is the title of the project, a lot of words, and this is a picture of Unalakleet in the background. But this project is collaborative from diverse expertise. So we have civil engineers on our project. We focusing on water quality, and also we have a social scientist. We have people from political science, from people who work with mental health issues, and also an anthropologist who helps us with the indigenous aspects of the project. In terms of partnerships, it's been a very good relationship we've been forming for the past 4 years with Native Village of Unalakleet, which is our main partner, the city of Unalakleet. Since we're focusing on the water challenges, we closely collaborate with the utility there. But we also have partners at the ANTHC and Northern Sound Health Corporations, particularly engineers working there who are helping with some aspects of the project. So I'll mention why are we doing this project. 4 years ago, some of the engineers working with the water utility in Unalakleet, they contacted us mentioning about some of the challenges they experience. And these challenges, I believe, are not only in Unalakleet, but other regions in Alaska. Specifically, many of the utilities struggled with pipe breaks and leaks, and some of these issues lead to challenges with the water quality. And as a result, we know that water insecurity is affected, right? People may not have access to reliable water, or they also may not trust the water, and there is in our work, we find there is persistent mistrust in the water utility, and people have lots of questions. What is in my water? And we also see that some of these challenges affect people both physically, but also mentally. There's a lot of there's a lot of activities that are being compromised because of issues with the water insecurity. And this figure summarizes, broadly what are some of those like individual aspects on the water infrastructure, water quality, water insecurity, and health sites that we're looking. On the top, we basically are mentioning that this pipe leaks and breaks, they have consequences on the water quality that people have, and at the same time, access of water. And not this year, but in the past, there have been instances when people would not have water for weeks, sometimes even months. So some of these experiences, we know they might increase anxiety, depression. So we're looking at this as a deeply technical and social and health project, and trying to find the interlinks, but also thinking of what kind of interventions could be done to solve those. And doing intervention is a very challenging part, because I think that understanding of what the community needs are, and understanding what's the best way to do it in a way that all diverse stakeholders on the ground could benefit from it. It has been quite a non-linear, complex process. So far to date, we have done some work with the CT, and Lina Sello on the project. She's basically working on creating a digital model of the piping system, so that basically will be used to simulate the actual system. So for non-engineers, basically this water system would help basically the community understand where their pipes are, where potentially if leaks occur in certain parts, what can be done, and what are the best ways to address some of these leaks. On the water quality side, we have taken tests and conducted water quality from 20 households last May, but recently in April as well, because we wanted to see kind of differences in depending on how the water is looping in the system. And we also wanted to make sure we communicate those results with the community and the households. So the results were presented in the following form. We tried to make it as simple as possible, and to explain some of the things you find in your water, like chlorine and the dissolved organic carbon, color, copper and lead, and things like this. And in addition to being transparent and people learning about what's in their water, so we use this as a way for water literacy, but also as an opportunity for people to ask questions about their water treatment, how it works, and in a way to potentially like bridge that, distrust between the utility and the people. This last part is informing, I would say, most of the other objectives. So this was done first, although I'm presenting this last. So first, we really tried to make sure we're approaching this as culturally appropriate as possible. So initially, we conducted a workshop with the community, like a talking circle, where we bought some food. We just told people, this is the project we have. What do you want from it? What would you want to get out of the project goals? And we also ask about data management protocols. What would people have expectations? And gather that information. And we continuously do it through formal interviews, but also through touching base with the tribe and touching base with the city about ongoing results. Kind of using that as a mechanism to get feedback from them, but also create the communication system between sometimes the city, tribe, and also the users, which are the people on the ground. So primarily to the questions that Brit sent by email, we primarily focus on Alaklit, although on the NNA project, we will work with the communities, with the tribes in Nome, and potentially we're thinking to expand in Shaktoolik. In terms of what time, this has been the timeline 2022, 2025. However, I know the main concerns are how long we worked versus project timelines, what we do for the community. So we are looking at this as a hopefully long-term relationship where we can work in these communities for a long time, as long as we are welcome there, and applying continuously for more funding to address maybe issues we identified at this level of the project that maybe we cannot do it with this funding, but just address them in the future. Yes, we in terms of representatives traveling there, we traveled there around 2, sometimes even 3 times a year. It just depends on different scopes of what is the main, issues that we're looking. For example, we wanted to go a little bit during the winter because that's when the water issues are a bit more persistent. So there was a couple of people that went this April, but there's also a team that will go again in July. Where people can stay informed, we do archive data that the community is okay to share in the NSF Arctic Data Center. And if people want to get access to some ongoing results, please let me know. I can point them where to find it. And we meet with our advisory board, which is the tribe and the city, ad hoc, but also in more formal meetings where we present the results. I would say every semester, every 2 semesters, to keep that conversation going. What kind of partnership with other researchers? I believe it's really great at the NNA. There was a workshop that focused on water related network, and they had a workshop. I thought that was interesting. I was not present, but my students were there and some of my collaborators. So, getting access to those people who work in the water related areas is interesting, particularly as we move towards maybe finding more solutions versus understanding of the water insecurity issues. And indigenous scholars. So for example, right now we're trying to potentially help the utility design communication materials that could be more user-friendly, because a lot of the utility materials are very much regulatory based, and that type of language is not really easy for people. So we're trying to hire artists or people who can bridge that. So we put 2 people together, combine the technical social knowledge, so those materials could be more user-friendly, more accessible to people, more culturally appropriate. So, sharing some art within that could be, be emotionally more accessible to the local people. What have we learned? I think the biggest thing that we learned from this project is, and there is a lot of, I would say we learned this through mistakes rather than ahead of time, is that, working as soon as possible with the community from the start is really the best approach, and really finding to do something that is practical to them, and then working backwards to what the research has been the most, I would say, successful and useful for all the people involved. And that's it. And if you have any questions, I would love to expand more on it. And again, thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you very much, Christina. And I think we do have a question from Megan. So Megan, go ahead and feel free to turn on your mic and ask directly.
Hi, good morning, Christina. My name is Megan Anders. I'm here in Nome, Alaska. I'm the former self-governance liaison for Norton Sound Health Corporation. And so we established over a period of 3 years, as it was the tribe's #1 priority, to address sewer and water in the Bering Strait region. And so what our tribes and our tribal organizations did is really worked in partnership to expand engineering and environmental services from our tribal health corporation. And with that, we saw the creation of new departments and new people. And I think something that's really important for your research as you go forward is to recognize the role of self-governance, and the role of self-governance in assuming management and ownership over systems. And from an agency perspective, the Indian Health Service is the primary agency responsible for access to clean water. Therefore, under our self-governance agreements, our tribes are really leaders on that front for access to engineering and funding for new water systems. And I certainly can appreciate, Unalakleet is a really challenging place to identify those water leaks. So during my time there, we had, instituted some new technology to find those leaks. And empowering our water operators with that knowledge is
Yes,
super critical, in a sense that
agree.
the last point that I'll share is culturally appropriate or relevant education for our water operators is really essential. And that means we need Native educators involved in the
Yes.
curriculum design of the water quality curriculum and testing. And I for one I was a certified water quality operator, sewer system operator, but could you put me in a plant and do things? Absolutely not. And so we have many operators who are not certified, but they are providing clean water to communities every day. And I think that needs some acknowledgement, that the institutional failures of
Yes.
Western education, should be identified. At
Yes.
any rate, thanks for sharing, and I'll stop there.
Yeah.
Even I have
No,
many-
Megan, I really appreciate it. That is definitely that is the challenge that I'm seeing right now. That is another challenge that I see with the operators, and it's so difficult to bridge. I am myself surprised how difficult those two type of knowledge are to bridge, and this is something we consider. I don't have solutions. I'm curious if you had better,
Yes,
experiences.
I do. My mother is a Native educator, and so what is needed is a team of Native educators to tackle the water curriculum for testing and all that jazz. We need
That's
Native
great.
educators, Native knowledge holders involved, and so that is one solution.
Yeah. Megan, would it be okay if I contact you offline?
Yes, I have your email and we'll reach out. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. That would be great. Thank you so much, because we're thinking to expand this in NOM, so this would be really great. Thank you so much for the comments. Any other questions? Or comments?
All right, Christina has to jump off our call, so this is an opportunity to ask questions right away instead of holding them until the end. But thank you, Christina. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much.
And I think next on my list, for a similar reason, Denali, would you like to share a little bit about the Caleb Scholars?
Yeah, thank you. Uvla Uvanga Adira Kavik Kikik Tarumi. Good morning. My name is Denali Whiting. I'm from Kotzebue. As I mentioned in the chat, I'm calling in from Kona, Hawaii. I go back and forth pretty often. I'm the director for the Caleb Scholars Program. The Caleb Scholars Program is named after the late Caleb Pungawi from Savoonga. And it started in 2012 as a marine conservation scholarship program created to support Inuit students as they study. And it has kind of grown, recognizing that the Indigenous approach to conservation doesn't have borders. And so we not only focus on marine conservation, but conservation in general from an Inuit lens. We currently have, excuse me, 6 fellows, and we're growing to 10 fellows for the next academic year starting in the fall. And we're based at Kawerak, but we serve the Norton Sound region, Northwest Arctic, and also the Arctic Slope. And so all Arctic coastal communities in Alaska. And our program has kind of shifted to more of a fellowship program where we're very involved. Our scholars have the opportunity to pitch internships, and it's very flexible what this looks like. If there's a project or an organization that our scholars are interested in working for, learning more about, they can do, typically we do full-time summer internships, but they can also be part-time or any other time of the year. And the way that it's structured is that they get funding from us at the Caleb Scholars Program to do the work, but they find, like I said, another project or organization to supervise their work and work with them on the to complete the goals of their internship. We also meet once a month at our virtual Kudagis, which are gatherings over Zoom. Our scholars are pretty much all across the country. We have a handful that end up at UAF and UAA every year. But we meet regularly to try to build that cohort, and we invite guest speakers and things like that. Really in an effort to build their advocacy skills and learn more about what different projects are out there that are conservation related. We also have a very strong focus on scholar wellness and cultural activities. And so one example is we meet once a year in person in one of the hub communities, so Nome, Kotzebue, or Utqiagvik, and we have sort of a mix of cultural activities like sewing or berry picking if it's the right season, or fishing. And then also we go out and visit different organizations to see the different current issues and current events that are happening related to conservation and Indigenous stewardship and things like that. And our scholars, they're kind of all across the board with different things that they study. We have people studying like bioengineering, elementary education, social work, as long as our scholars can make the connection between their academic and professional goals and Inuit-led conservation advocacy. They're all welcome to apply. Our fellows have to have completed at least 36 credits. And so there's, I feel like, a lot of different opportunity to connect. I'm really curious in learning more about different projects that are happening in the Bering Straits region, just because it seems like it could be a good opportunity to get our scholars connected with research, potential internships, mentorships, partnerships with our program, whatever it is. I'm always available to chat. I put our, yeah, thank you. The website is in the chat. I'll also put my email if you want to learn more about the program or connect about opportunities. It's pretty much endless. The main thing is that it's scholar-led. So if you have a project that you'd like to share, I can share it with our scholars. And then if there's interest, we can continue the conversation. So I think I covered the main points. If there are any questions, please let me know. Thanks for letting me share my introduction early. I have to hop on another call here soon. But I look forward to checking out the recording to see what projects everyone else is working on.
Thank you very much. Yeah. And for the same reason, since Denali has to jump off, if you do have a question or two, we could take one of those now. See, and not seeing any hands going up. So thank you, Denali. I think it will probably, oh, we do have one. See, I just had to say it. Kathleen.
Hi, my name is Katie Hersner, and I'm actually from Nome, but I'm currently living in Fairbanks, and I'm a graduate of the High Latitude Range Management Program. And there are years and years of research that was done at UAF with the Reindeer Research Program, but none of it was ever really like completed or finished or published. And it's something that I'm super interested in doing because it could have a huge impact on increasing the food security in Alaska. And then, of course, we would want it to be, sustainable, healthy. Trying to throw out those words there. And so, yeah, as I'm looking for an avenue to be able to do it, I was hoping to maybe contact the Reindeer Herders Association and see if they would like to be involved. But maybe the Caleb Scholars Program might be a good place to start. So I'll shoot you an email.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And can I ask a quick question before you leave too, Denali? Is there an application program, like an application process for projects that would love to host a Caleb Scholar, or do they just have a conversation with you? So matching funds or anything like that needed?
Right. So typically, you would share information with me. I would share it with the scholars, and if scholars are interested in that conversation progresses, then the scholar would fill out like a work plan with goals and things like that. But it wouldn't necessarily be an application from our program partners.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Yay. Yeah. Clapping hands. Thank you, Denali. We look forward to continuing this kind of conversation. I'm glad you were here.
Thank you.
I think next up on my list, we have Katy Smith. Katy's coming to talk to us a little bit about the IARPC community of practice working on field operations.
All right, can you hear me and see me okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. All right, so my name is Katy Smith. I am a contractor and a science project manager with the U.S. National Science Foundation's Arctic Research Support and Logistics Program. I am a co-lead for the Field Operations Community of Practice, or FOCP, as well as a co-lead for the Early Career Community of Practice within the Interagency Arctic Research Policy Committee, or IARPC. I have 3 fellow FOCP co-leads, Ali Lepp, David Allen, who are both at NOAA, and Renee Crane, who's with me at NSF. And I'm going to start with a quick intro into IARPC and then go into some of FOCP's deliverables, including the research vessel matrix that we produce annually. So I'll post a collection of links at the end to helpful pages that I'll mention throughout. So if you can go to the next slide. Okay, IARPC comprises agencies, departments, and offices across the federal government. The agencies listed with these icons support research in or about the Arctic. In addition to these agencies, the Department of State, Office of Science, Technology Policy, and the Office of Management and Budget contribute to IARPC's work as well. So next slide, please. So IARPC is tasked with implementation of the Arctic Research Plan, or the ARP, by coordinating representatives from federal and state agencies, academia, industry, and Indigenous and local partners with interest in Arctic research. So the ARP is a high-level strategy for 2022 to 2026, and its overarching goals will be accomplished through the Biennial Implementation Plan, or the BIP, which has specific objectives and deliverables. So we're currently transitioning from the 2022 to 2024 into the next Biennial Implementation Plan and planning with changes and additions to that. So if you can go to the next slide, please. And so the implementation plan is stewarded by IARPC principals, staff group, collaboration teams, and communities of practice, and participating agencies and partners. And so there are strong connections across IARPC and working groups with collaboration and coordination. And highlighted in red, you'll see the main priorities of the Field Operations Community of Practice, which I'm here to tell you more about. So next slide. So FOCP supports fieldwork in Alaska and the Arctic, and in general, we coordinate infrastructure, resources, and communications with local communities. We promote environmental compliance and inclusive and equitable field environments, and we facilitate international access to field operations information and collaborations. And some of the ways that we fulfill these goals are through resources like the Research Vessel Matrix, the Mooring Matrix, through information-rich meetings such as the pre- and post-field season meetings, as well as additional public and other collaborative meetings. So next slide, please. Over the last 2 years, since the start of this Arctic Research Plan and our FOCP leadership team, we noted some highlights below on what we've learned so far with working with the Bering Strait community at large. So Alaska and the Bering Strait region in particular is unique and underserved. This region is socially, environmentally, and geopolitically complex. Language relationships and intention around our work as representatives on FOCP, our group at large, IARPC, and our home organizations, it matters. We need to be adaptable and responsive to community needs and their guidance. And biggest point is that we are still learning. And so we are always open to ideas and connecting on how to better engage the Bering Strait community at large. And we believe that one of FOCP's most community utilized deliverables is our research vessel matrix. So if you can go to the next slide. Numerous research vessels travel through Alaska and the Arctic waters each season. And so IARPC and partners compile information about expeditions on marine research vessels. And we do this to help improve collaboration between scientists, but also to inform communities on when research vessels will be there and provide contact information for all of the research vessels. We intend for this to mitigate disruptions to communities and subsistence activities. So we've adapted the research vessel matrix into a webpage on IARPC collaborations. So the link is on this slide. The QR code will take you directly to the webpage, and I'll post it at the end of this presentation. And so this page provides a list of research expeditions occurring in Alaska and Arctic waters this year. It's sorted by region on the page and then by date. So for example, you can see expeditions occurring in the Bering Sea by clicking that link on the page. There's a downloadable spreadsheet with all the expedition information, and there's also a calendar view. So that stacks the expeditions that are happening at the same time. And so I want to emphasize that this tool is not intended to replace community engagement and communication with individual researchers and vessel operators. We're trying to be a hub for information. So for example, if a community member were to see a vessel offshore, they could come and look at this webpage to figure out what research expedition this vessel is participating in and how to be in contact with the ship if needed. So next slide, please. So we share this information widely using a newsletter, posting about upcoming expeditions on social media, through presentations at relevant meetings, through lots of listservs. And if anybody ever has additional ways that they think sharing this information would be useful, please reach out to us. So next slide. Briefly, I'll also mention that we have a mooring matrix. And this is by sharing a list of these locations, we aim to inform the community and vessel operators of the locations of all the moorings presently deployed in the Bering, Chukchi, and Beaufort Seas, hoping to reduce the damage to the moorings and facilitate collaborative science activities. Next slide. So 2 weeks ago, we held our annual pre-field season meeting, co-hosted with additional communities of practice within IARPC. And this meeting is to provide opportunities for researchers and community observers to share research plans, objectives, and experiences. And while participation in the meeting is great, we feel that the recording is a really helpful resource for people to be able to go back throughout the 2024 season to view and look at research expeditions and research priorities of this larger group. So next slide. Yeah, so this is a sign up slide for our newsletter. The next newsletter is going to go out on May 15th, and this will give updates to the research vessel matrix, the mooring matrix, and any additional meetings. You can reach out to us also at our new email address, which is field.operations@iarpiccollaborations.org. Yep, next slide. And so this is the last slide. We intend for our work to promote equitable and inclusive Arctic system interactions, research and management. And so thanks so much for letting me share about FOCP, and I'm going to drop all those links that I mentioned.
Thank you, Katie. And you'll be here for our discussion the second half of the meeting. So stick around for that, and you can reconnect around any questions you guys might have about the work that they're doing. So, and check out all those links. Got a lot of reading to do now. So,
yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I think next up on my list, I think is Corey Erickson.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. My name is Corey Sikuaq Erickson. I grew up in the Norton Sound region, Unalakleet primarily, also some other villages, and my mom's from up further north. Today I'm going to be talking about the Arctic Watch project very briefly, and also the Rising Voices Changing Coasts project. And I know that we have a very short time, so I'll kind of just scratch the surface on them, both of those projects, and hopefully if anyone's particularly interested in either of them, they could either reach out to the project directly or follow up with questions afterwards. Typically, I wouldn't be, sharing on behalf of, for instance, the Arctic Watch project. I'm more or less involved in that one as kind of a helper consultant. I see a couple others in the room as well, and Anna Rose MacArthur at Kawerak, as well as a couple other people who are involved in, for instance, the workshop with Arctic Watch. And if you guys wanted to chime in afterwards and correct me where if I'm wrong in any area. However, the Rising Voices Changing Coast project, I am the Alaska coordinator, so I would be typically presenting on behalf of that project in this type of space. I'm kind of filling in for the Arctic Watch for the time being for this particular presentation. So good to see you all. Hopefully this will be a brief introduction, and you'll have to lift up the 5-minute, 2-minute cards, Britt, or just chime in if I'm going too long. But I tried to pack it into a couple slides, so there's a lot going on here. I apologize if it shows up bad on your screen. But so to start with the Arctic Watch project, and just full disclosure, also both of these projects are not necessarily doing research per se. Maybe the Rising Voices is going to have elements of it of doing actual research. But these are more or less, we're presenting here today to kind of let you know and give you a glimpse of what we're doing, and to introduce you to the project, because I understand that probably half of you this is the first time of hearing of Arctic Watch or Rising Voices. And to be clear, they're two completely separate initiatives. The Arctic Watch being funded by many different funding organizations, philanthropy, type of organizations, but it's being spearheaded and led by the Marine Exchange of Alaska. And for those of you who don't know who they are, I'd encourage you to go to their website, and they have a really awesome video that kind of explains what they do. But at the root of it all, if you were to boil down the root of the Arctic Watch project and the Marine Exchange of Alaska's kind of mission, is that their mission is saving lives, property, protecting environment by preventing maritime and protecting the environment by preventing maritime disasters. And you can see on the left here, the Marine Exchange of Alaska is a 31-person staff organization in Juneau. That's kind of one of the Pacific, at least in the Pacific side of things, one of the leaders in as far as sea traffic management. They have a really big, awesome headquarters down in Juneau, where they have a whole system of watchstanders who kind of track all of the vessel traffic that goes on a daily basis. This screenshot you see here with all the vessel traffic, that's actually a glimpse of one moment in time in all the vessels that are out there. That was in September, by the way. They also do set up and maintain a whole series of what they call marine safety sites across Alaska, most of them concentrated down on the Gulf of Alaska and southeast and the Aleutians, but they are kind of working their way up into the Arctic to help provide more maritime emergency response and monitoring and sea ship traffic kind of awareness, as well as management. You can see some of the types of things that they provide on their marine safety sites. They do work pretty extensively down in the southeast and the southwest, so the Aleutians area. I won't even scratch the surface on all of the different types of tools that they offer at the Marine Exchange there. The important thing is that the Arctic Watch's initiative to utilize this huge team of expertise and tools and just amazing stuff that they got going on there to be to make a suite of tools that are suited for the Arctic, and also to do this in a way that engages the community at a deeper level, because in other parts of the world, for instance, waterways safety guides or waterways safety councils, they don't have as much engagement with actual the local populations or the subsistence users. It's more or less the commercial users that kind of influence those types of spaces. So I'll get to the next slide, and I'll show you what kind of next steps are, or some of the plans for Arctic Watch. So that's what Marine Exchange does. They have this huge team of expertise that's just amazing, that could be utilized to kind of fill that void in the Arctic of there's a huge lack of emergency response infrastructure, comms, communications infrastructure. There's a real lack of local awareness of the sea traffic that's going on. There's a complete lack of local engagement in the sea traffic management and monitoring systems that exist. So over the last 10, 15, 20 years, Marine Exchange has really recognizes this need and started to work together with a whole group of different organizations to help start to set up this project. You know, there's the vessels that, as you can see in the bottom left, you know, there are vessels that have gone down in the subarctic that could have totally been avoided. You know, there are 6 lives lost on this picture on the bottom left, in which there was a ship that was just drifting without power. There's a huge incentive for ships not to call in when they are having issues, you know, especially in the international scene, because of insurance, because of liability, because of different things. They are very reluctant to call in. So what the Marine Exchange of Alaska does, they watch all vessel traffic, and anytime it slows down to 3 knots or less, they automatically contact them and start inquiring, do you need help? And, you know, start to arrange the potential response, because a lot of times there's incentive for those vessels not to call in or ask for help until it's too late. There has been a huge void, like I said, in the comms infrastructure, and as you know, in the middle down here, there were, or as you might not know, there were 2 workshops that Kawerak Marine Program hosted in 2014 and 2016, where they brought delegates together from pretty much the entire region and all municipalities and all tribes, and they talked about concerns in marine shipping, you know, talked about directives, community directives for the forthcoming, you know, ship traffic management. And, you know, not a lot has happened since then. We're still waiting on to answer some of those calls for better comms development and everything. And this is what this initiative is to directly help try to stand that up. And I will emphasize that the Kawerak Marine Program does play a very central role in this, and I'm happy to see that Anna Rhodes MacArthur is here. So that's one person that you could reach out to too if you're more interested in more or less in the Bering Straits marine activity. And I would also encourage you to watch their website page, because they have such good resources on there. So next steps for the Arctic Watch. Like I said, I'm kind of just blasting you with a bunch of information here, so please follow up if anything catches your eye or if you have any questions. But some of the things that are starting to percolate and starting to be developed in this, let me remind you that the Arctic Watch project is very early in its development. Congress is supporting this. They just recently approved a $2 million kind of seed money to start really get this off the ground and launch the program. The project will be developing an annual waterways voluntary users guide that pulls together all different types of resources, for instance, endangered or areas to be avoided and everything, trying to pull things together that could be provided to every vessel that comes through the region, information that they might not otherwise come across for protocols, some of the more local directives. They're looking to reset up the Waterways Safety Council, which was previously funded by the Shell offshore development. We're hoping that this space they could recreate that space with this funding, and then to bring together all the stakeholders so that locals have a voice in the sea traffic management. There are a whole bunch of tools and resources that I didn't even scratch the surface on that you could learn more about when you go to their website, and then they're being developed right now as we speak. They have a system called Pack Tracks, and they've gotten some funding from AUS to fund licenses to this Pack Tracks accounts that they have. And it's the program that they utilize to monitor traffic. And we have 6 licenses for local folks to utilize, which is kind of a new thing. And we're looking for folks who might be particularly interested in utilizing the Arctic Watch tools and resources. Please reach out to myself or Anna Rose, or if you think you know someone from the Bering Strait region who has a job, for instance, that is to really utilize the Pack Tracks. And then we did have an Arctic Watch partners meeting that you guys might have heard about this last Juno, or this last January in Juneau. Too many J's there, but we Kawerak helped fund this, and we a few different organizations. So the Arctic Watch group that was kind of putting together Arctic Watch, we pulled together delegates from all tribes in the region, the Bering Sea Elders group, the co-management councils in the region, and we brought them down to Juneau, and we spent 2 to 3 days really going through all the different ideas, as we're developing them. So there's a picture of all the delegates from the region. I would look at the marine program in Kawerak if you're interested in more, and also the Arctic Watch Facebook page. How am I doing, Britt? Did I use up all my time on one project? Do I have 3 minutes? Okay.
I think you're okay, Corey. Let's
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do this one faster. Okay. Rising Voices, and this is kind of the project that I'm the coordinator for the Alaska Hub. Let me just really briefly, up in the top right-hand corner, you can see that this is this is a national project. Obviously, it's funded by the National Science Foundation grant, 5-year grant. Our main organization is Haskell Indian Nations, as you can see, kind of in the center of the U.S. But then we also have 4 regional hubs: Alaska, Hawaii, Louisiana, Puerto Rico as our kind of regional hubs, and they kind of to represent those eco-regions. The overarching Rising Voices group that you can kind of see their drive, the purpose, kind of like what I talked about, marine exchange being kind of the overarching vision. The vision here is to develop a hub that brings together Indigenous and Earth Sciences in the partnership and provide Indigenous students with career, opportunities. So I was really happy to see a Caleb Scholars program here in Denali. We probably need to talk more, and to support the communities in specific. In this case, we are targeting and working with Shishmaref as our pilot community. I've been working with them really closely. In fact, I'm flying back out there to meet with all the organizations up there next week. But this project had a lot of flexibility, and to really try to root it and to utilize all the different tools on our team. UCAR and NCAR is our main group of modelers. We have a huge team of supported education specialists, scientists, modelers, to bring them together and utilize and uplift all those resources and expertise that we have on the team. So we're kind of, I know that we won't do it justice with trying to do this in 2 minutes. So I'm looking forward to talking more afterwards. But we're kind of going in 2 different directions in the Alaska Hub, in the work that we're doing in the Alaska Hub. And that's to support and leverage local capacity, local human capacity, to help train them and get them on their feet, and to utilize as many existing tools and data and research and projects in the region as possible. So that's number 1, to kind of help train and to hire a team there in Shishmaref. Number 2 is to help pull together and be a kind of a binding project to bring together existing projects that are ongoing in the region, and to try to orient them in the best way to maximize local impact. So just very briefly, how do we support local, leverage local human capacity? We're actually hiring a team in Shishmaref, and then we're going to train them up on how to utilize certain tools and resources, and kind of leverage projects, and basically introduce them to logistical support of projects, introduce them to observational networks. And I won't get into too many details on those specific observers / liaisons that we're hiring, but we're basically trying to hire a team that's primed and ready to utilize and work with science projects that are coming in. And we do have a list of them that we're currently working with. So maybe I'll kind of leave some of this there, because I don't have time to really justify what I'm explaining here. I'm trying to confuse myself with trying to consolidate it. But basically, we're hiring a team in Shishmaref that are going to specialize in certain areas. Marine, for instance, one of them will be a marine specialist who's working with Siwu. We have Curtis Nakbuk and Corey. We have a whole team of observers kind of working as a team, and utilizing the ISN platform, sea ice monitoring, some water quality testing for the watershed. And the last slide here I'll share is that how are we bringing together science from the region? We're envisioning since we have 3 years left on this project, we're envisioning a deliverable to the community that kind of, we're calling it a Convergence Research Atlas, that kind of has 2 main sections. One, really get into the deep weeds of the context of the local project, Shishmaref, how we got involved, have a section in that context, the local research ethics in the Arctic, at all the different levels, IARPC, or at the international level at ICC, EE documents at the national level, IARPC at the regional level with Kawerak, research protocols, and then at the local level with local protocols and directives, in which we'll have a workshop for the history. So that's the context section. Then we're also having the convergence research topic sections in which all of our scientists are going to be chipping away and working towards those sections of the atlas. I won't keep going. Maybe I'll just leave it there with a lot of questions so that we can have a good conversation afterwards and we have time for others. So I understand that I had about a 30-minute presentation, probably set up here, you can see. So
It's great, Corey. Thank you.
Hopefully I confused everyone enough so everybody has a question about something in there.
Yeah, I think we'll hold questions for the end. Just in the interest of time, going to jump right over to Alexis Will. So Alexis, I think you're also involved in Arctic Watch too. So
thanks, Britt, and Corey, excellent job on the Arctic Watch presentation. Let me just share my screen. So mine will be pretty quick. I just wanted to share with everyone today about a seabird project that we're starting. It's building off of previous work that we have been doing on Sikuaq or St. Lawrence Island. And this is hopefully the start of a larger project, which is why I'm excited to share this with you today. But the goal of this project is to really look at the overwintering ecology of MERS, because from some of the past studies that have been going on, we've found that some birds are going to Asia, some are hanging out in the Bering Sea, some are going to the Alaska Peninsula. And we are really curious whether or not those different regions that they're traveling to affects what they're exposed to, specifically in terms of contaminants and disease. And so there's kind of two ways to look at our work. One is from a seabird perspective. So does the wintering ecology of MERS result in different levels of exposure to contaminants and disease? But then there's also the human side of this, whether or not that means that the communities that are relying on those seabirds for their cultural health and general well-being, and also part of their food security, whether or not that's exposing them to different levels of risk, depending on what the migratory strategy of those seabirds. So we kind of have these two sides of the project. And kind of to reflect that, we also have two different approaches. So this so far is a one-year project, but we're working on building it out to be multi-year. So one of our study objectives is to work specifically on Sikuaq with in Savoonga with hunters there. Our thought is that Sikuaq is a sort of a pass point for a lot of birds heading further north. And so during the harvest, we think it's likely that they are harvesting from multiple waves of birds that are then going to go breed somewhere else. So by looking at the harvested birds there, we might be able to find out more about MERS that are at places breeding in like Russia, where we might not have access to. And then the other part of the project is launching this range-wide tracking study, looking at the migratory behavior of seabird, of MERS throughout the Bering Sea. And with both of these groups of birds, the harvested ones and the live ones, we're looking at physiology, somatic state, microbiome, contaminant load, and then also exposure to disease. And just a quick snapshot, at the first slide, I had a whole list of collaborators. I didn't even introduce myself. I was so excited about talking about seabirds. Anyways, this had details. I'll do that right at the end. So I'm with World Wildlife Fund and also a research scientist at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and with some collaborators from USGS. We're really focused on the harvesting component on Sikuaq. And then also we're helping to support some of the tag deployment that is happening at other locations. So then we're working with partners at Fish and Wildlife Service, USGS, a lab in Anchorage, ADF&G for Round Island, and then also the Aleut community of St. Paul. They have a tracking study currently running. And so then we're trying to build this whole team of people to then look at seabirds throughout the Bering Sea. And so you'll notice that we have one location in the Bering Strait. So we are working to develop partnerships with others in the region to sort of push that boundary further north. And hopefully as we gain more funding for this project, we'll also be able to launch some additional research sites in the Chukchi Sea as well as the Bering Strait. So that is my 2-minute, 3-minute overview, and I look forward to hearing from others. This has been really fun to hear what everyone else is working on in the region.
Thank you, Alexis. Let's see. Next on my list, Stacey Lucason, Kawerak.
Next on your list, I thought you were the last one. Pouring more coffee. I will be just a second.
Sorry, am I next on the list?
We could do Stacey and then go with you, Tonio. So want to hear from both of you, and after that's we're going to move into our group discussion. So just two more presentations followed by discussion. So let's go with Stacey, and then Tonio we'll end on a great note with you. How about that?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Stacey Lucason. I'm here. I don't have a presentation, just a link to share with you all. So to be very brief, I'm here from Kawerak to talk about the regional tribal research protocols, expectations, guidelines document. And so that's available on our website. Many of you may have received it via email, and I am collecting a list of folks that want me to come do a full presentation. So this is just an introductory hello to let you know that it exists. And yay, Kana, thank you. It has been years in the works. So I'm newly with Kawerak, but Kawerak, the social science program, has been building this pretty intentionally for years, and then very recently, the last 2-3 years, doing workshops and iterations with our board, who's comprised of the leadership from the 20 tribes on the U.S. side of the Bering Straits. And so it's available, it's published. I'm happy to come talk about it, not the full of today, but come and spend an hour with Research Institute or the office like USGS. We're working with you guys to get a set of time for the USGS and CASC folks, so where we can actually spend an hour and a half and go through if you've got questions about your projects, or if you are wanting to share things that are working well. One of the things, if you read all the way to the end, the board's direction to me and to the department is to work on tracking the research that's in the region. What is happening? Which communities is it relevant to? Who's doing it? Is this agency funding? Is it a grant? Is it an ongoing project? Is it partnered with any of the tribes or the cities or the regional organizations? And we're still developing what that will look like and how we can actually maintain and manage that. The IARPC that was mentioned earlier that does the vessel traffic matrix is helpful, but of course they're limited to just the marine and the actual vessels, so not flyovers, not people that are there up in the region doing in-person either sampling or talking with folks. So that is something under development that I'm sure I'll come to ARCUS and talk about more as it gets further along, but that is sort of the next steps. So research protocols out, available for folks in the research community to review. You can get a hold of me for questions via research@kawerak.org, and it's a shared email. So if I'm not here, somebody else presumably will be checking that email, but I'm planning to be here for a while. So anyway, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Stacey. Okay, and finally, and last but very much not least, Tonya, I'm so happy to have you here today. So Tonya is a former Arctic Indigenous scholar. She's based in Nome, and I kind of wanted to, I gave you different instructions than I think I gave other people. And so that's why I thought, oh, we can end on this one and maybe have it turn into a little bit more of a conversation. So, you know, I invited Tonya to just offer some perspective on what she was hearing today, anything she wanted to share, you know, thinking about all the work that she's been involved with in her community. So, you know, happy to hear from you today, Tonya. So take it away.
Hi everyone. My name is Tonya Osborne. My Inupiaq name is Kananak. My mom is originally from White Mountain. That's where I was raised. I was born in Nome, raised in White Mountain, and then moved to Nome eventually as a young kid. But my background has been in marine biology, and towards the end of my undergrad career, I really started focusing on how we can incorporate traditional knowledge into science. And I don't know, when I graduated around 2019, like incorporating traditional knowledge in our region was like a pretty new topic. Like I feel like a lot of people were advocating for it. And more recently, I started my graduate program at UAF in the One Health Master's program. And in the recent year, I got in contact with Britt, and I've been joining her on some ARCUS projects. I went to the Western Alaska Interdisciplinary Science Conference in Dillingham last year. I didn't get to go to the one in Nome, but that was really interesting because there were so many projects that were focused on working directly with communities, which was a really big difference than what I saw as an undergrad. And then, I don't know, I'm kind of all over the place. I work for Norton Sound Health Corporation. I work in wellness, and I see a lot of connections between living in a really healthy environment and taking care of our well-being. Like a really big example was during Typhoon Merbok. A lot of people were shaken up. A lot of people lost their fishing racks, their cabins, their means of survival, their means of subsistence, their way of life. And when that is destroyed, it really has impacts throughout our community. So yeah, I don't have much to say, but I'm really happy that Britt invited me on the call today. And yeah, I'm happy to contribute to any of the conversation.
Thank you, Tonya. And I think it's awesome to have your perspective as part of the call today. And I hope folks will think about questions that they might want to ask Tonya and everyone else on the call, because I think we're moving into that phase of the call now. I do have a very special guest here today, though. I'm putting her on the spot too. I just want to introduce everybody to Audrey Taylor, who has just joined ARCUS as our new executive director. And before we get going, Audrey, do you want to say anything, or do you have any questions for the speakers today?
Thank you, Britt, and thank you all for being here today and for letting me join into this conversation. I just started with ARCUS a week ago, so I'm trying to catch up on everything this amazing team is doing, like Lisa and Britt pulling this call together. It's been fascinating to hear what everybody's working on. I've been like desperately writing down some themes that have kind of emerged from what people have been talking about. And so it's just really interesting to hear what's going on in the Bering Strait region. So thanks everyone for participating and sharing your research. And I know that Britt would like, and Lisa would like people to jump on with any discussion and comments and, just share your experiences freely after this. I wanted to just, I guess, share a couple themes that came out to me, and maybe, start off the discussion with a question or so. Some of the things that I noted from folks talking was this kind of recognition of a changing climate and a changing research environment in the Bering Strait region, and sort of the need to track research efforts and build capacity and avert disaster in a variety of ways. And that, sort of comes down to this idea of workforce development, which we've talked quite a bit about in ARCUS, and I recognize it's probably a really pressing need for everybody. And I guess one of my questions kind of leading from that is in the realm of workforce development. And this is a question kind of, for general discussion or not, but something that I wondered, in that sort of process of workforce development and building capacity, what does culturally appropriate education look like? And where do people see the need for role models of Indigenous descent, or in just Indigenous leadership, scholars and role models in the industries in which we need to build capacity, and what are the ways that we could help kind of build that the availability of role models in the Bering Strait region. So I'll just throw that out there. And again, thank you all for letting me participate.
All right, this is the scary part of this call. This is where folks get the opportunity to actually talk to one another. We're not going to put you in breakout groups. So we're inviting you guys to kind of put yourself out there within this wider forum. If you feel up for it, up for the challenge, I invite you to switch on your video, switch on your mics, and we can all have a conversation. Oh, look, I see Kana. It's great to see Kana. Thanks for switching on there. I'm gonna ask if anybody might want to respond to Audrey's questions, or if you have other observations about some of the themes that were emerging from the presentations today. Oh, I see a hand, Kana.
So, Stacey, I'm so very, very excited about the resource that Kawerak has put together. And I want to also say that, Kawerak has been a driving force in a lot of equitable research practices and critiques of research practices on behalf of, our people. And so I want to say thank you so much to Kawerak and to your team as well for leading the way. In thinking about the best practices, is there like one or two or one that you wouldn't mind sharing with the group that is part of your document? Just because I want to give you just a chance to highlight some of the incredible work that's there and really encourage people to read what you've put together cover to cover.
Thank you, Kana. Just to share a little, it's organized sort of in the order that that research is conducted. And so starting at the conceptualize and thinking about research, talking about what research is needed, which I definitely heard some of, like Alexis, you were talking about this, like working with the people in the community to design those research questions, having that validation and check-in of, are these the correct questions? Are we going about this in the right way? There's a kid coming into the background of this meeting. That including the people who are, the subjects of nothing about us without us, like really at every step, I think is the maybe overarching lesson in that protocols document. I'm happy to talk about any of it, but it's even if they say no at one stage, like, or we don't have time, it doesn't mean we don't have time then for the remainder of the project. Like, the responsibility is to go back and say, okay, we heard you at this stage, now we're at the next stage. You have anybody, you know, who wants to work on this, who's able to be involved? Is this of interest, or do you not want this to be happening? So Olga, that's Olga. She's 4. Starting to know some of you guys from our Zoom meetings, which is really kind of cool, and a few in person. But anyway, thanks for asking, Kina.
Any other questions for our presenters, or anybody want to share observations? Anna.
Question.
Let's go with Anna first, and then Suhail will take you next.
Hi, everybody. Feeling under the weather, so I'm going to keep my video off. But Alexis, I have a question for you and the research that's being done. And I'm wondering if it ties into avian influenza at all, and if that's being tested for. Thanks.
Hi, Anna Rose. I hope you're feeling better soon. Yeah, avian influenza is our primary sort of pathogen that we're testing for, and that is one of the main impetuses for sort of this range-wide look, because it has been popping up in MERS but kind of in odd spots. Like there's a small die-off of common MERS in near Bristol Bay, on the outside of Bristol Bay last summer, but we haven't really seen it anywhere else, and it could have a really big impact further north, and then also coming up on the heels of some of the big die-offs that have happened with MERS. And so, yeah, that is our kind of one of our primary concerns is avian flu, but then also just opening up to other pathogens and contaminants that might add additional stressors and make birds more susceptible to being infected. Yeah, great question.
And then Suhail, you had a question.
Am I audible?
You are.
Okay, so Alexis, my question is like the pathogens like which are getting like into the body of the birds, right? And then those birds are moving to the Asia or some other parts of the world, right? So you guys are working where those birds are reaching to the wetlands, and then those wetlands are also getting like mixed, and these wetland water is getting used. So you guys are working at those level as well, like where there is wetlands, and then the analysis of the water or something, like is that what you guys are also doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for MERS, they're seabirds, so they're mostly always on the ocean, and then they just come to land to breed. And so it's really just looking at the sort of ocean health, where they're using that ocean in the wintertime. So they travel quite far during the winter. So looking at sort of that more terrestrial question with water bodies would require a different bird model to look at.
But like there would be some bird species which are traveling far, like in the populated countries like China or India, from those like, and they are carrying pathogens with them. So like here we can find a very good research gap, and like we can put sensors on those birds, and then we can like do the analysis where those birds are going, and then we can do the like the analysis of the water, what are the pathogens they are carrying, and we can do something else, right? So
yeah, and there has been research on that, especially with the concern of avian influenza coming from Asia. What's really interesting is that this high path avian influenza that has arrived in North America actually came from Europe this time. So all those concerns of it coming from China or Japan didn't pan out. But yeah, that's something that people have looked at off and on over the last couple decades. And also with seabirds, like MERS, they are a reservoir for avian influenza, so usually low pathogenic strains that don't affect them that much or humans. but also looking at how those strains might move from the land to the ocean that's definitely a question. So there are some people have been working on these issues like you're talking about, but it kind of is streaky, so it happens when there's funding. So it's not sort of consistently ongoing.
Like, is there any particular agency which is like dedicatedly looking for such dedicated looking those birds which are traveling, like any monitoring system is there or like anything?
Yeah, I think USGS and Fish and Wildlife with the H5N1 arriving in Alaska have really been working on increasing their screening throughout the state on many different bird species for that reason, to detect where these outbreaks are happening. But I'm not an expert on avian flu or disease.
Yeah, I'm also like I'm also in the field of geography, but this was like really exciting. It can make a difference.
Thank you. It looks like we have Lisa, you have your hand raised. Do you want to jump in there?
I have another question for Alexis about avian flu. So back in 2007, I was doing the sampling for avian influenza for Fish and Wildlife Service in Savoonga and Gamble. And we only found it in MERS. I sampled hundreds of subsistence harvested birds, but a big part of my focus was outreach to hunters on how to process and handle birds safely. So they were still consuming these really important foods and not too scared to hunt. And so the advice then was, the virus was easily killed with soap and water, use hand sanitizer, cook foods thoroughly, which might mean not hanging MERS to dry and only eating them half dried, like really just doing what you can to kill the virus. And that was over 10 years ago now. Viruses evolve. Has the advice for hunters on safe handling practices for potentially infected birds changed in that time?
No, we're still doing exactly what you did, which is sharing those exact same guidelines and really making sure that we're not being fear mongers. So the goal is not to say these are unsafe, just to look at what is there. And that's a great point. It's something that we talk about a lot with, there's the concern that we want to address, but we also don't want to impact, have an unnecessary impact on the consumption of those birds. But even though the strains of flu have changed, I think the general they're still susceptible to the same things. So we still encourage hand washing and thoroughly cooking birds, and that's about the best we can do.
Hey, it looks like we have Liam with your hand raised, and then we'll have Anne.
Yeah, thanks so much, Britt. And thank you. This was really terrific. I just love hearing all the work that's being done. And I want to echo Stacey, the Kawerak guidelines are really exceptional. Really, that work is really, really something. Thank you. And I wanted to ask Tanya, the Caleb Scholars Program seems to me to have been super successful. Like it's just gone on for what, and I'd really maybe just a little bit of your thoughts about what is part of that mentoring that's going on that really is supporting Indigenous scholars and kind of how you see the program work.
Sorry, was that a question for me about the Caleb Scholars?
I think there was a mix-up between which scholars program you were in, Tonya.
Okay, well, I am part of the Caleb Scholars Program too, but sorry, the question got me off guard. What was the question again?
No worries, Tanya. Just it's been so successful, and just a lot of the mentoring that's going on of early career Indigenous scholars. What do you think is really a strong element of working with scholars that you're finding in these programs like Caleb?
I think the mentorship and the mission of the program is really impactful. Like when I was a Caleb scholar, all of the people I was looking up to were women researchers, and some of them were Indigenous women too. So already seeing them in those positions, I already was telling myself I can definitely do this. Like I didn't have as many doubts as I probably would have if I was completely alone. And then not only that, like the research that I wanted to do as an undergrad was funded by the Caleb Scholars Program, and they don't just hand you the money either. They have you go through an application process. So you're learning how to apply for your own grant money and kind of calculate what kind of costs go into doing research on your own. So having that mentorship, like they're not going to just give you the stuff, but they'll give you the tools to learn how to do it on your own. And I don't know if Kana has anything to add too, because she's on the Caleb Scholar Steering Committee.
I would just echo what you're saying is this idea that we are, like, I think the important part for Caleb Scholars and working with these emerging leaders, some of them are in all of them are in college in some way, but some of them are part-time scholars, and that means that they are often working in their own communities. So for example, the president of the Kikiktagra, like the Kotzebue IRA, or the Kotzebue, like native village of Kotzebue, the president of their tribal council is one of the Caleb Scholars. And so, these are people that are making decisions in their communities right now and will make decisions in their communities in the future. And so, like, really thinking about how how they can bring their own values into the work and the research that they are part of, but also the work that they do within their community and their advocacy has been super important. And Corey is also he was part of the Caleb Scholars Program for a while before I started. So he might have some other insights as well. And he's been doing research for years and years.
Yeah, I had a brief stint there helping with, and I think a huge strength of that program is it's rooted in Caleb Bungawi, Kina's dad, and the family is his vision and his work, and then the family follows through so closely with making sure that it continues on that legacy, and it's just a real organic and real feeling. It's not like a outside organization feel. It really feels like it comes from rooted in the village there and Sikuaq and across indigenous culture.
And then Anne, I saw you took your hand.
Yeah, I'm here. I just didn't want to constantly have let me turn that off. Okay. So hi everybody. Really appreciate everybody's info. I love ARCUS for helping to network. They're good at this. And so I have a networking question. Great discussions by everybody on what's very current and concerning and risk related. A lot of stuff we talked about that. And if anybody knows the work that I have been doing, it's usually working with emergency managers, either in the North Slope Borough or in Bering Straits or in Canada, or now I'm in Norway, trying to get a handle on Arctic disaster risk reduction issues, both social and ecological. And we do a lot of community-based monitoring. We do all hazard research, whatever the emergency management, wherever we're working, sees as something that's priority or of concern, kind of leads us to where we go. I have two questions related to that. One is harmful algal blooms with the Arctic Watch, if anybody's involved in that, because we are up in the North Slope Borough now. Unfortunately, it's there and very bad situation. So we're trying to study what Don Anderson has found at Woods Hole in the Barrow Canyon We're trying to find funding to do that. So I know Bering, I follow everything that goes on in the Bering Straits because it's the role model for what's going to happen, right? And you guys have got it bad in the Bering Straits too. So I'm just wondering if any of the projects I heard about, water quality or Arctic Watch or anybody is dealing with that and trying to get a handle on it, especially with early career researchers. What we're finding is there's people studying lots and lots of different kinds of, unique things, right? That are in the Arctic, unlike other places, but trying to get it up to an applied research focus for disaster risk reduction. I know conservation is an important aspect of that. We're seeking students all the time to help with us. And we have the hardest time trying to focus people on emergency management issues. I just throw that out there. I don't know if Caleb Scholars would be interested, but we are really, really needing this badly now that IARPC has that as a priority, right? Finally, in this cycle. So I'm throwing that out, two spearhead questions if we have time to discuss it. Thanks. Or you can email me.
Anybody on the call want to respond to Anne? Anybody have any thoughts? Anybody know about other work going on?
I can hop in. Oh, well, Megan, maybe you go first because you might have better information than me.
Sure. Good morning or good afternoon. I just wanted to share, I think part of the success in the Bering Strait region in response is the role that Norton Sound Health Corporation's environmental health program has played in empowering local community members to be able to identify and respond. And so that's training health aides and training physicians to be able to respond to HAB incidences. And so I think, the strength of your local partnership with, regional institutions and local tribes and communities is going to be an indicator of how successful you are in getting people to engage, because, once our own organizations are responding, that's where empowerment comes rather than having sort of a outsider approach. And so that's just if you're trying to expand, upon in the North Slope, it's really important, I'm sure, to work with the North Slope Borough, their health department, as well as their biology or department. I'll have to defer to Carrie on the correct people, but yeah, local response is super important. Also important to note is that the tribal health organizations and the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act, they're authorized as public health authorities, meaning, often scientists don't want to be the ones telling people what to eat or what not to eat, what's safe to eat, when it's not safe to eat. They rely on the public health authority of the state of Alaska. But our tribal health organizations are authorized public health authorities. So working with ASNA would be important if they don't have a program already. For example, Norton Sound is a public health authority. So that's understanding the jurisdictions and roles that our tribes and our tribal organizations play is really important.
I appreciate everything you just said, and I have followed every single one of those already. And we're still up against the wall. Public health and the North Slope Borough, Bering Straits, the public health are all on board. We're having a really hard time in the North Slope Borough, really hard. Luckily, my lead monitor just got her RN and she works for public health, and she's even worried about bringing it up. So it's a lot of other things. I don't want to go into details, but you know where I'm headed. It's a lot of other things going on here, not just working with the community, because we already do that. I work with the wildlife management. I work with emergency management at the North Slope Borough. Everybody is very, very cautious about this. So, and understandably so. So what we did was stood up a local advisory committee of about 7 right now. Various people in the community and other folks that are in the government, not as the government hat, okay, because they can't do that without, being told they can do that. but I appreciate, Megan, totally where you're coming from. We're just having a really, really very delicate time up there. So that's why I thought if we got some early career researchers involved, it might help. But thanks.
And Megan, I noticed that you put in the chat a comment about the let's see, the Norton Sound Health Corporation's Ethics and Review Board. I wanted to ask if you might want to flag that, you know, or say anything about that, or how you outside researchers you might want them to engage with that review board.
Yes, that's made up of the board of directors, which are representatives of our tribes, and if you know anything that is focused on health, or you know in relation to environmental health and the scope of that kind of work, to utilize that review board. They do review research projects from an ethics standpoint, and you know, so that's another opportunity to ensure that your work is being ethically reviewed by our tribes. If no one knew about that, I just wanted to throw that out there, especially for that water and sewer researcher.
Thanks, Megan.
Right. Any other questions from the group? If not,
just to chime in about the HABs, just because Arctic Watch was mentioned, and I'm not sure if Alexis was going to chime in about this, but as far as HABs, I think, as you know, Anne, and just for others in the room, the HABs network that's associated with AUS is probably leading the effort on looking at the situation. The problem is that we know when the conditions are most optimal for HABs to occur, but they just don't know the exact mix or soup or conditions or the causes that are actually causing certain parts of the algae blooms to have the HABs. You know, I'm not a pro at all this, but the Kinnick tribe also has a really awesome monitoring program. But,
if anybody's interested, Carrie, you're totally correct. Anybody interested should join the Alaska Harmful Algal Bloom Network. So I listened to that. I joined that. They have a round robin every month. So we meet every month, and they've actually given us 2 microscopes to help our monitoring recruitment effort to try and get people on board. That's another issue, is we can't get monitors because this is such a non-starter topic right now up there. So anyway, early career researchers, I keep thinking I need to like find some and get them infused and make them lead the charge. Okay, I mean, as far as local early career researchers, local folks. But if anybody has anybody, please refer them to me.
Thanks, Anne.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions from the group? Otherwise, I'm going to put 3 questions in the chat for you all. And when we sent out our announcement about this call, we did specifically acknowledge that there are new tribal consultation requirements coming into effect for researchers applying to the National Science Foundation. That's a new requirement as of the 20th of May. So these questions, the 3 questions that I've just put in the chat, are again coming back to that idea of like, what coordination opportunities are currently going on that could be augmented? You know, how could this group come together to do more so that, you know, we're not overwhelming small communities as we try to respond to some of those new requirements at NSF. So I want to put that out there as since we did flag that this would be a space where we could address some of those questions or talk about that as a group as well. Does anybody need a little bit more information about what what those new requirements are. If so, Lisa has just dropped a link also in the chat that provides a quick overview of what's happening there. And I'm not pretending that ARCUS like knows or I know like a huge amount about this. We're responding to that requirement too. Trying to crowdsource some information, talk to those of you who are thinking about how best to approach this. Go ahead, Kana.
So I've been thinking about this a lot, and I also want to plug there'll be a webinar coming up, Pillar, the Participatory and Indigenous Leadership and Research Team at IARPC. We will be hosting a webinar, so stay tuned for that. Right now, it's escaped me the days, it's like later on this month. And so if anybody knows, put that in the chat, but so that's going to be with people from NSF that help design this. So that will be very useful if any of you all would like to attend. And then the one thing that I've learned, so I've gone to a number of the talking sessions with NSF leadership in relation to the new PAPG tribal nation approval information sessions, and Stacey and I were standing in line at the Navigating the Arctic and coordinating our questions at one point. And because they, when you like, they forget that Native people, when we go to like AFN or that stuff, there's like a microphone and we're like line up to speak and also ask questions and then coordinate them. So it was a good experience. But I went to the session at Navigating the Arctic annual meeting, and then also at the recent Indigenous Data Sovereignty Summit and Governance Summit in Tucson, where they came and gave a session. And two things that I think are interesting but are not clear within the guidelines. One is that yes, you need to get tribal nation approval. But with that, what is not explicitly written is that approval can be revoked at any time. So pay attention to that. So, staying like very clear with the community partners, or the community that you're working with is going to be very important. And so, but just, be aware that can be revoked and for good reason. And then the second thing is, that tribes can charge a fee for this tribal nation approval. And what the limitations are on that fee are unclear. But one thing that you might want to do or consider doing if you are, currently proposing something, is to add some money into your budget for future budgets, right? Or future work, to be able to seek permission for follow-up work from like the current proposal that you have, or looking into your budgets to see what you can do, because I would expect that tribal nations, because it takes labor, right? There's someone like Stacey who literally has to like read these things and then put, and like forward it on to the right people. And then there's coordinations with land, especially in the state of Alaska, kind of complicated. So there's a lot of labor involved with this. So and so, having leeway time, lots of it, because remember, not all tribal councils meet every month. Some of them meet quarterly, some of them meet at these different bases, and no one's going to throw an emergency meeting together for you to approve your research idea. So that's just some hot tips.
Thank you. And Jessica, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. And I'm glad that we're touching on this new NSF requirement, and which I support. But I'm also wondering if, and hearing that IARPC is going to host informational webinar on this in the upcoming weeks is super. But I'm wondering, like, is there going to be any like training guidance to go along with? I mean, I'm not speaking on behalf of researchers that are not on this call. And like, and just like only going that far on their behalf, but it seems to me like there's researchers that are connected with tribes and regional tribal organizations that understand this need and understand the value of this work. And then there's clueless scientists that are going to be stumbling into this and cold calling you know, tribal administrators with, you know, numbers off the internet, which is like a great start. But is there going to be any sort of, this is, here are the suggested best practices on working with tribes and getting that support. Granted, I recognize the newly released Kawerak Research guidelines would be a perfect hand in glove type of document, but NSF is broader than the Kawerak-Region. So I'm wondering if NSF is going to be providing any training for researchers or guidance on how to begin that process. And on the other side of that coin, is NSF providing any type of that training to tribes on how to deal with all these random researchers that want to do stuff? And I mean, maybe we don't know those answers yet, but those are just some of the questions that came up in my mind.
Yeah, I think those are excellent questions, and I'm going to add just a couple more to them because I want to know if it's Stacey's job to train us all. I don't know that it like that should be the case, and because this is a community call, you know, I want to empower this group to actually think about we're being part of that solution, like finding ways that maybe ARCUS, others can come together to kind of flag the issue and do some stuff to add capacity, so it's not just on Stacey to do all these trainings. So I'm going to throw that out there. But and I think the ARPC folks in the room, maybe Liam, if he's willing to respond, may be able to say more about what is being planned or not yet known with what's going on at NSF. I don't have those answers.
Yeah, well, this has been really great. And just to let y'all know, I'm on the working group that formed this. I came on recently on the tribal engagement community working group at NSF. So all of your kind of questions and concerns I'm listening to and will note, and they're pretty common. So, and just soon there should be an FAQ, frequently asked questions, attached with this. And of course, this is the rollout. And I really appreciate whoever put the article about, or blog, whatever it is, about the new changes. And this is a broad stroke that NSF is taking, and on purpose, to kind of open this up and hopefully move in the right direction and kind of figure it out together. I do want to, I think, I can't remember who said it, but I think what Stacey and Kawerak has put together, and there are lots of other materials that have been out for many, many years. ICC, like there's a lot of materials that Indigenous communities and leadership have put forward to help researchers figure this out. So I hope that we can kind of reinvest in those materials, and as scientists really read them and not just, oh yes, you know, the Kawerak guidelines, those are great, but to really, there's a lot of real really strong recommendations and guidelines for working with communities. And so I think we're figuring out, just for everyone to know, this does go into effect May 20th, and there will be kind of I'm not sure what the process is going to be, but there'll be a checklist that PIs will have to check off and you will need to get either, approval or that you don't need approval from communities. This will impact everybody. And also you can contact NSF and Caroline Blanco. And actually, after I'm done talking, I'll put her email in there. And she is actually the tribal liaison at this point, and she's kind of the point person for the questions. And so email and ask with your questions, I would suggest. And I don't know if I covered everything, but I don't think it can be here. I think we're all just kind of figuring this out together.
Thank you very much, Liam. And Corey, do you want to?
Just real briefly, I had a thought, just as a note for researchers and kind of because the conversation started steering this direction as far as requirements for research to engage with communities. And this is true for all of Arctic research, but I think it's really emphasized in the Bering Straits region, being that funders are kind of looking to fund projects in the region, is that we talk about community needs, we talk about correlating projects with community needs, we talk about building projects around specific community needs to maximize the impact of our science expertise and tools. But the fact of the matter is that the tables have kind of turned here where, we're all so centralized and focused on identifying specific community needs and for our projects to be oriented to address those needs. But if you step back and look at the big picture, that's not the case anymore. We shouldn't be asking, what does a community need? What does a community need? What does a community need that can correlate with my project? What does it need? What does it need so that I can build a project around it? I mean, that's what everyone's asking. The fact and the truth of the matter is that the tables have turned where community engagement, co-production of knowledge has become a central requirement for Arctic research. So if you look at it, in that sense, the tables have turned to the point where the community doesn't need anything from us. And, we survive, we take it day to day, we work to continue to survive. And that's what we do in the communities out in the Arctic. They don't need anything from thousands of scientists and all that work. But the fact of the matter is that scientists and projects need the communities. It's actually the other way around. So just the language that we use in saying that we want to make this project, for instance, centered on community needs. The fact of the matter is that community engagement as a requirement for research, as a requirement to get funding, obviously it being such a huge requirement, you almost have to, it's such a competitive nature that you have to one up the next project over to actually have more emphasized community, correlation with needs and all that. The fact of the matter is that we as scientists, researchers need the communities. That's the fact. To get the money to feed our families, we need the communities now. So I just wanted to start to plant that seed for people to kind of orient their thought process that way, so that we're not starting with, okay, I want to go get after this funding, I don't have any money, but I need to identify a community need that I could correlate my project with. It's we're tough to describe here, but I just wanted to share that perspective, and to kind of leave it there to kind of think about in that perspective, because we're not actually, community doesn't need anything from us to survive, and that's how we've always survived. However, I'll just leave it there. But thanks for having us today, ARCUS.